One Piece chapter 1027. Now I think this chapter is definitely a setup chapter for a certain fight that we've been waiting so long for, and that is Zoro versus King. And I think one of the main reasons Oda is focusing on this fight and not Sanji's fight is because we already know a bunch of information when it comes to Queen. We know some of his origins, we know that he's a scientist, we know a lot of things, right, when it comes to Queen. But King, on the other hand, he is the only individual that we literally know zero about, and Oda is starting with him because he's trying to give us more of the backstory on this guy in a way to flesh out the entirety of the Beast Pirates. And it seems like King has more lore value when it comes to the overall One Piece world, whereas he's a part of this race, and this race might be important in understanding how some of the things came to be in the One Piece world, especially relating to things like the Void Century and the Celestial Dragons. So he has a lot of importance, and there's also the possibility that Sanji could have some correlation to King's race, the Lunarians, and him having this mask on adds more mystery to him as a character. Maybe there's something that he doesn't want other people to see. There's a lot going on with King, and so it seems like the next battle that we're going to get might be King versus Zoro. At least it seems like that's where things are headed. Now, something I will also mention about Sanji and Zoro is that for the most part, throughout the course of the series, their battles always takes place while Luffy is fighting the main antagonist of the arc, and that's exactly what's happening here. So I think Zoro and Sanji and Luffy were going to deviate between all of their fights because these guys are essentially the last top 3 strongest characters in the Beast Pirates. But again, just like prior arcs, Sanji seems to finish first, Zoro finishes next, and then finally Luffy has his battle being the finale. But we're getting closer and closer to the end of all this, at least if the end is going to play out as we think, with Luffy winning against Kaido. We're at a very important stretch of this battle because these battles are going to be the hardest. Oda is obviously saving the best for last, and honestly I cannot wait to see more. Now, before we keep going, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video and subscribe for more One Piece content. Now, for the most part, this chapter consists of 2 sections as a whole: Momo, Luffy, Yamato versus Kaido, and King versus Zoro. So let's start from the beginning. So it pretty much left off with Luffy and Kaido splitting in the skies apart, and here we come to see Yamato recognize that this is exactly what happened in Oden's journal, in which Whitebeard and Roger would clash and the heavens would split. I do find it interesting that Kaido doesn't mention how much stronger Luffy has gotten, but I think deep down he probably realized that Luffy has taken his ability to another level and pretty much wants to test Luffy before saying anything. I think that's what's happening here. Now, while splitting the skies was amazing, we still need to see more from Luffy before deciding how strong he is. But I do definitely think that this is setting up Luffy to be a top tier, and when I say top tier, I'm talking about Yonkos, Admirals, Mihawk, Dragon, all of those top tier characters who are at the pinnacle of the verse, right? And that's fair to say because of the clash that happened in the previous chapter. But again, a lot of Luffy's fights always consist of some sort of advantage, whereas the fight isn't truly a 1v1 and involves some sort of convenience or something that helps Luffy, right? And this is true for Kaido, as Kaido has essentially fought the entire Minx. He fought the 9 Scabbards, he also fought against the Supernova in the first battle, then fights against Yamato, and finally is fighting Luffy again. You know, the same thing happened with the Flamingo and Law with the Gamma Knife, same thing with Cracker and Nami with the Wet Biscuits, and same thing with Katakuri with him running away, and the Marienda, and a lot of things, right? And it was hinted in this chapter that Kaido seems to be weakening in some sense, in which he cannot maintain his flame clouds anymore, which essentially tells us that he's declining in terms of his ability to control his devil fruit. Not necessarily his own transformation, but the flame clouds that he produces. Well, this is obviously indicative of Kaido getting weaker because of the accumulative damage that he's taken throughout the course of this whole thing, which makes sense as he's been fighting this entire time. And it's funny because a lot of people don't really give credit to what Kaido has done so far. It's massively impressive. And even with all of this, he is still unfazed by anything Luffy has done so far. Now, even though Zoro did scar Kaido, it's going to take another level of power to actually put him down for the count. So we'll see how Luffy deals with that. And Luffy seems to have a lot of confidence going into this fight, as he wants to fight Kaido by himself. So he's obviously obtained or gone through some sort of transformation that we haven't seen yet. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now, moving on to Momo and Yamato, and here we come to find out that Onigashima seems to be falling apart because Kaido's flame clouds are getting weaker, and this essentially answers one of the questions that I talked about in one of my previous chapter reviews, in which I talked about some sort of tug of war happening between Momo's flame clouds and Kaido's flame clouds, and that Onigashima would not move because Momo would be pulling the island to one side while Kaido does to the other. But with the reveal that Kaido's flame clouds are getting weaker, it definitely tells us that all Momo needs to do is create a flame cloud that are stronger than Kaido's, because Kaido's is currently weak right now, which would allow Momo to override Kaido's ability. So Momo is obviously going through a hurdle now because he doesn't know how to control it, even though he's using it on a subconscious level, because that's what he's using to prop himself up. Now, even though creating the flame clouds just like Kaido does is the most reasonable answer right now, I'm not exactly sure if that's how Momo is going to save Wano. I think Oda might come up with something more creative and different, because that's honestly what Oda does, right? Now, I did say in my previous chapter that Momo was actually going to use his physical dragon body to move the island, and after seeing how big Momo is in his dragon form in comparison to Onigashima, I think it's very possible that he could pull it off, because I'm not sure if Momo is actually going to be able to achieve the ability to use his flame clouds on something else. So we'll see how things play out. Now, moving to Zoro versus King. Now we get a very cool action sequence here, and I've got to say that I really like how King is using his Devil Fruit ability, and it seems like he possesses this partial transformation that Marco also uses, whereas they turn one part of their body into the beast part, and I think that's indicative of them being advanced Zoan users, in which they can freely morph their Zoan transformation in different ways. And King here is able to use his wings to create air slashes, and one strong enough to send Zoro flying. And I've got to say, Zoro looks extremely exhausted, and the fight just started. But again, for Zoro, exhaustion doesn't really mean anything, because that's really where he excels at. That's him being in his natural element, so I can't really say there's something wrong there. And talking about Zoro here, he did also show us a new technique that essentially allows him to propel himself in the air, which we know Zoro does have problems with mobility sometimes, so it's good that he has this in his arsenal for when he engages fighters with flying abilities, or he needs to get to places where he can't reach normally. But here we come to find out that Zoro was able to tear open King's mask, and it is stated here that no one actually knows what King looks like, obviously adding more mystery to his character. And based on the little tidbits that we get to see on his face, it seems like he has a similar hairstyle to Crocodile, you know, the slick back. He does also seem to have a tattoo, but I'm not sure if that's blood. But it does seem like he has a very similar effect to Katakuri, in which King could be hiding something with his mask, which is very interesting because it seems like when his face got partially exposed, that's when he took the battle outside where no one else is. Now, it's obviously some sort of big secret, or it might have to do with his character. It could also be a part of the Lunarian race, in which they have some sort of feature that has to be hidden. But overall, I think this is going to be a masterclass battle. I'm really looking forward to this fight, because it seems like this is what the next chapter is going to focus on based on the ending of this one. So we'll see how things play out. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like on this video, comment down below what you guys think, and subscribe for more One Piece content. You can follow me on Twitter at Ferrospace. But it is Ferro, guys, and I will see you folks later. Peace.